I click record and then say, yo, what up? How's it going, everybody? Today, they dropped what I think is one of the biggest changes to the game, to UniVersus as a whole. We've talked about attune symbols. We've talked about blitz. We've talked about a bunch of cool stuff, right? What we're going to talk about today is one of the things that I think could potentially be a miss in the experiment for Attack on Titan, which is truly what it is, right? Attack on Titan, as a block set, is how it's been described as a block set, is got some perfect. Yes, that is who I am missing. As a block set, has got some cool stuff. Has got some cool stuff, and it also has some. It's got some weird stuff, and I'll talk about the weird things. So, we have released an article by my main man Bill. We'll zoom in here. Swoop. And let's talk about designing UniVersus resource symbols. Today, excuse me, we are talking resource symbols, the good, the challenging, and some new ways in which we're utilizing those symbols in design moving forward. The 12 primary resource symbols in UniVersus, we'll discuss the infinity symbol in a future article, are air, all chaos, blah, blah, blah. You know the symbols. What symbols do well? Resource symbols help provide identities to mechanics and cards in UniVersus. A life card should feel different from a death card, and the way we design life cards should reflect that. Put another way, resource symbols provide identities that players can express themselves through gameplay and deck building. Okay? But symbols aren't just for flavored expression, they're also crucial for defining a deck building. By defining deck building, by providing guide rails to players to identify what goes together to make up a deck. Your favorite character features, if your favorite character features the fire symbol, you know you should be looking for other fire symbol cards to play with that character, because deck building in card games is one of the most skill-intensive areas of play, and I agree. I think deck building is really, really, really hard, and they are only making deck building harder for standard play. For Spotlight play, it's going to be pretty easy. Going to be pretty straightforward. For standard play, this is going to be difficult. And symbols have extra significance to help for helping smooth over this experience and reducing the number of players who leave UniVersus when they reach the build a deck phase of the experience. I think it's really interesting to have somebody play the game, love the mechanics of the game, and then leave the game at the build a deck phase. I wonder how often that actually happens, because I feel like it should be never. I feel like it's like less than 1% of somebody comes in and is like deck building is too hard, I don't want to play anymore. Because there's so many online tools you have of like utilizing other people's deck, right? Like just net deck. Like that's like people say that that's a dirty word, but I literally make my entire job off of it. I want you to net deck. That's what I want. I have a whole Patreon that's like almost exclusively for that. But yeah. All right. So what symbols don't do well? What symbols don't do well? The biggest challenge we've heard from players engaging in UniVersus resource symbol is that there's too many of them. I agree fully. As we've talked about before, mental load is a double-edged sword in game design. Too much, and players abandon the game feeling overwhelmed. Too little, and players abandon the game for being too boring. With 12 symbols, players are faced with an early hurdle in the game to assess what each of them was about. A challenge we wanted to address. So many symbols provided challenges for game designers too. There are hundreds of potential combinations of symbols, making it difficult to define the personality of a Death Fire Life card versus a Death Evil Fire card. It's also difficult to build characters that could cover each potential combination of symbols due to the large quantity of mixes that exist. I think that this is correct, and I personally being, you know, a world-class game designer, have a fix to this problem. I have a fix to this problem that obviously I've never implemented, and I'm only backseat quarterbacking of like how difficult it would be to implement, but I've done some thoughts on it. And my thoughts are simply that you, instead of this, with 12 symbols, instead of this, right, with 12 symbols, players are facing an early hurdle at figuring out what each of them was about. I think you actually just turn it around and you say, death cards will never do this thing. Death cards will never do this. And you take out the tools that death has as opposed to put in what the death symbol does. And that will inherently tell you what the death symbol will do by telling it what it won't do, right? And so instead of saying my death symbol has to do this card, my fire symbol has to do this card, my life symbol has to do this card, you just suck out what the death, fire, and life symbols will do. There's three major things that these cards won't do, right? And these won't do this thing. And so now when you have death, fire, and life, and you have death, evil, fire, now you've got two more things that pull that out, right? The fire symbol is not allowed to have 0 death foundations. Correct. Yeah, and that's a uniquely fire thing. Yeah, very funny. But that's how I feel about it. Obviously, like, that was a shower thought. I jolted awake super early in the morning. I was like, whoa, what happened? But I do fully agree that 12 is too many. 12 symbols is too many symbols. I wish that we just had less symbols, but you know, this is the world we live in. This is the game we live in, and there it is. To help address these challenges with symbols, we experimented with some changes in symbol expression that will start rolling out in our next booster set. Moving forward, each product we make will include some, but potentially not all, of the resource symbols. What this means is that Screaming Calm, thank you for the follow. What we need more symbols. Oh, interesting. What this means is that there will be max 12 and minimum X, right? It is okay for there not to be 12 resource symbols represented in a set. We're making this adjustment with a few goals in mind. We want to continue easing onboard players for joining UniVersus. That is fine. We want to do a stronger job of reflecting the flavor of different worlds through their symbols representation. An air, chaos, death, fire, order world, interesting, we picked these 6, should feel different from an all earth, evil, good, void, water world. I think that this is a little ham-fisted, and we'll talk about it. I want to flush out the individual identities of symbols by putting a bigger focus on specific symbol products, symbols, products to product. Okay. We came to this decision after significant amounts of playtesting to understand the impact of gameplay with limited symbol representation. One concern we had was an overrepresentation of some symbols that were included in several products in print together, i.e., the death symbol. How would that impact things? We saw 2 things in design that helped shape our thoughts in this space. Our tournament data showed that frequently 1 or 2 symbols had already overrepresented gameplay data on because of power level cards, back alley, younger Tagoro, right? Our increased production line could allow us to represent all symbols across many products, even if any individual products only presented a few. Our increased product line could allow us to represent all symbols across many product line, even if any individual product. Yeah, sure. Over the past year, we introduced the Challenger Series, a new deck product line that allows us to visit some more worlds. And we've had some partnerships like Spy Family Code White or upcoming Suicide Squad cards that have allowed us to add additional cards to the game world of UniVersus. The outcome has been new avenues for introducing cards into the game and allowing us to accomplish our goals, introducing an individual product focused on several symbols, but having enough of these products to build a broader format like standard with representation of all symbols. You started to see that we could have rolled out challenge decks featuring some symbols, but you could see come August as we roll out our first boost product, but not all symbols. This makes sense, right? This new representation doesn't mean that an into symbols that players love. It's simply a new expression of them. All 12 symbols remain in the game. We will likely see all 12 appear together in a product at the same time in the future. We're excited about the new opportunities this expression of symbols gives us. We're very excited for you to get your hands on them soon. So my thoughts. I think that this is like the biggest change that I don't like personally. But I am such a simp. Such a simp for symbol unity. What I guess I don't think unity is the correct word, but like I want all the symbols to have equal representation, right? I loved the idea of the like block format cards, right? If we go back and we look at the actions in League of Villains. Middle screen bottom right, I click this button. When we look at the all-out battle, Anna Voice, Ruthless Mockery Showdown, parity, symbol redistribution. I just want all the symbols to be represented, and that's equal symbol representation is what matters to me. But when we look at all-out battle, Anna Voice, Ruthless Mockery, and Showdown, this is exactly read like parody. Okay, this is exactly what I want for symbols, right? These 4 cards represent all 12 symbols, and they all do a very similar thing. Response after you block with this card, after you block with this card, after you block with this card, after you block with this card. They all do a very similar thing. This should be represented. This is how I feel good design should be for every single symbol in the game. There should be some sort of block that exists, right? And that's what I care about, right? And here's my big takeaway from like what this is doing, right? Obviously, and the community figured it out instantly, and I wasn't allowed to say shit, right? The Air, Chaos, Death, Fire, Life order is going to exist as the main Attack on Titan symbols. Right, those are the symbols that are going to exist in Attack on Titan, and so those are the only symbols that characters will get representation. But attuned symbols get to fix that by saying that even though there are no all Earth, what were the other ones? All Earth, Evil, Good, Void, Water cards, characters that have Air, Chaos, Death, Fire, Life order, Air, Chaos, Death, Fire, Life order. Will be, those will get the main support, and the other ones, if they have those symbols, you'll get to play those cards. And here's like my big issue, and it's not that big of a deal. These characters, I'll pull it back a little bit. These characters get no support from Attack on Titan. Right? Does that mean Attack on Titan 2 is also the same 6? I had initially thought that maybe they were designed as one giant 600 card set and split in half by symbol. Truthfully, Jace, and this is not breaking NDA, I don't know. Nothing about Attack on Titan 2 was shared at the conference. Right? It just wasn't shared. They were solely focused on everything that was products that were happening to the end of this year. And we didn't really get anything Attack on Titan 2. We really focused on Attack on Titan 1. And I mean, let's call a spade, right? The conference was there for them to show us all of these changes, get our temperature, and be like, hey, is this a good idea? What does this feel like? Right? But is Attack on Titan 2 no longer this year? I caught myself, Jace. You're right. Sorry. Attack on Titan 2 is this year. My apologies. I keep thinking it's the first set of next year, but that's not true. It is last set of this year. But it is. Did you tell them this was not a good idea? I said that this is a slippery slope. I think that designing cards. I think the designing cards for specific symbols and leaving out other ones is a really easy way if you mess up, which happens, there is not a single card game that doesn't have bans or erratas or whatever, right? Like, it just happens. If you mess up and you value something differently, you just like break a small section of the format, right? You just break a thing, and you say that other people don't get tools to answer it, and yada yada yada, right? I think that it's really easy just to break this one little aspect, right? With that said, I mean, you could say the same thing though about like now they only have to focus on 6 symbols at a time to make sure that they don't break something, right? And then they take the others, they take them 6 symbols at a time and go, we're going to make sure we really don't break these symbols for this format, right? But it does highlight the fact that they like don't necessarily want you to play with the all earth, evil, good, void, water cards. They just like don't want you to play with those asterisks, right? Like, it reminds me of the idea of like remember whenever Capcom Capcom would like every season for competitive Street Fighter would nerf and buff specific fighters, and it really felt like whoever they wanted on the Capcom stage is who you played, because some characters were just inherently like way better. It kind of feels a little bit like that, where it's like we really want to focus on these symbols and make sure that these symbols are really good and represented, and then we're good, right? And like it would be something if like whenever we took breaks from symbols, right? Like last format, we had Chaos and Death really tearing up competitive formats. Chaos and Death were like the two most represented symbols, specifically because of things like Younger Tagore, and they said it in the article, right? Why do we have a Death set? Why is the Death symbol in Attack on Titan? Besides the fact of like, you know, Attack on Titan's all about like death and killing people and whatever, right? But like you could have done this with Evil and felt like just as well. But now we've injected a bunch of death cards into the game, and so now this entire next format, I've got a bunch of death cards that I gotta fuck with, right? Let's pretend, right? And I don't know anything about Attack on Titan 2. I truly don't. That the next Attack on Titan set, Attack on Titan 2, is all Earth, Evil, Good, Void, Water, right? It is those ones. Whenever we take and we look at like the next format, do you just like shelf all your death cards and just say, hey, I have to play one of these symbols? Like that's like, it's a slippery slope. It's a slippery slope that if they mess up, I think it's going to be a feel bad when it comes to competitive play, right? Just play retro. I mean, that's an answer. I don't think just play retro is. I think retro is a fun thing for kitchen table games. I don't think retro solves anything that I'm talking about. Not if you like care about the game in its current capacity. What else? What else about this? Oh. Now that we're talking about symbols, I get to actually talk about like final thoughts for like attunement. And I think I might have shared this before, but now it is super obvious. When it comes to attunement symbols and the fact that sets are going to have 6 symbols, right? And we can assume like this is the newest change, it's the one we're going to go with, right? We have 6 symbols for the rest of time, sure. I think my personal opinion is I want simple representation for every symbol inside of a set. I think that that's important. What I want to do with symbols is let's take Girl Power for example, right? In Girl Power, there are 9 main set characters, each with symbol identity, and I want those all to be resource symbols. And then I want to take all of the 66 backpage cards, and I want you to make those attune symbols for either all 12 symbols or whatever, and you patch holes. And let's pretend that you are making only a 6-card set, or a 6-symbol set. You still do that same 9 characters with the whatever, And I think that you take some of your back page cards and you just cherry pick and give, if you gave the other 6 symbols 2 relevant pieces for as like a back page, this is not for you, this is not for this set, I think that it would be fine, right? I just think that it would be fine. Like, there's no reason that we don't have like a cool all symboled card within the back page stuff. There's no reason not to. I think that just like it will tell everybody that there's like at least some singles worth going for, right? Could you imagine if like let's pretend, like let's just get crazy with it. Let's pretend that what is the name of this card? Black Abyss. I had it on the tip of my tongue. Let's pretend that Black Abyss was an evil attuned ultra rare that existed, right? That is a reason to go and buy Girl Power packs, even if there were no evil characters inside of Girl Power. Like, I'm going to go buy packs, and I pull this ultra, and I feel great because it works backwards compatible. I think that's fine. That's how I feel personally. If I identify, I'm gonna start reading chat and start talking to you as opposed to give my. But there's my thoughts, right? And we didn't even talk about the idea of infinity, right? Infinity being on any amount of cards more than like we've only seen one secret rare, just the secret rare. Infinity being on like, oh, we've seen the asset that the jetpack, the omnidirectional movement gear or whatever, right? If there are more infinity cards, then like that is essentially my back page slot card of like, this is backwards compatible, it's for everybody type stuff, right? And so like there's the idea of that's how you do backwards compatible, is you just put infinity on things, which is fine. But with that, YouTube, thank you much for watching the video. I kind of rambled here a little bit, but I'm gonna talk to Twitch chat because I mean this is the thing that I'm most nervous about. That I think that it could mess up and make the game feel less fun opening packs. It is possible that people just like take entire sets off when it comes to like buying product, which is not what UVS Games wants. But with that said, thank you much for watching the video, guys, and as always, I wish you well.